Everybody's getting settled in. A very good morning to you. I think you had a very interesting evening, most of you. How's your mother, Sedona? Good? She looks fine. Good. We had an interesting situation yesterday, and I would not have believed it had I not seen it. And what will happen with all of you in your own, what we call man's creation is time and space. We know this. This is not a truth in totality. We had an incident yesterday where somebody whom I know very well, Glenda Berry, whom you all know, actually got locked into a situation that I would have thought couldn't happen. The group travels together, and that is the strength why no one can stay behind. Many of you think, well, I know Andre and Louise know that they would like to stay back, and there are others in this room who get into a certain area of vibration that they relate to extremely well, and many, in what we view as the past, would like to stay there. Anyway, Glenda had this is the first that I know of where, other than the personality Brian, who had a specific job, and that was to bring energy from what we call our source. Remember, there are millions and millions and millions, an unlimited number of cosmic days. And he brought in that golden thread, or linked earth with source, and that was for the first time. What you are doing with it is magnificent. Absolutely magnificent. Glenda, when we were doing our seventh dimensional work, and I said to you, I believe I said to you, or we said to you, that I hadn't seen anything quite like this before with a group. Doesn't make the group greater than another group. It makes the point in, quote, time, unquote, very significant. So anything can happen now. And thanks to Jim and Barbara and a number of others that were here, she's fine. What happened was she actually linked, and it's a great surprise to me to find out how many emotions came in the spiritual realm. You're not supposed to have emotions. You're not supposed to have worthiness or unworthiness in this level of consciousness, so there's still some clearing for all of us. The main point I want you to grasp is that now anything is possible. Anything is possible. And some of you are getting closer, and I can see, in fact, I'm surprised, with this coding that's going on, more and more will do what has never happened on this planet or on any of these other planets coded with a DNA, even if it were a 12-strand. All the concentration that I'm aware of is with this little planet of sorrows. This little planet of sorrows. And we've never been able to bring in, just briefly through Brian, because his journey was different. Not greater, just different. So in June 1488, he was the first to anchor the spiritual light on earth for Sanat Kumara. This was a great understanding between us all, and it was long overdue. We'd had no connection with our God source, and all the ones we venerate are not of that level, including Melchizedek. They're adorable, and I've got to remind you, or I feel I should remind you, that there's a difference. That mastery, those who have adored the masters, those who adore the magic, must let it go now. For your intuitive connection, when the coding is set, when the coding is in place, when you are recoded, you have the same knowledge that they do. And when the DNA strand is expanded, strands are expanded, and we'll do that this weekend, attach you to your correct helices and to the correct 12 strands of DNA to the new multi-dimensional matrix. You all have that, don't you? You do understand. Anyway, it's very significant, a very blessed moment, I think, for me. I'm glad that Barbara and Jim and others were there to help this dear soul. So the timer is the emotional body, even at the levels of spirituality, seventh dimensionally, where there is no emotional body, the unworthiness set in. Do you recognize this? Do you recognize it a little bit? As you go through your life after life after life after life, not feeling worthy, not feeling worthy. We're going to have to work on this. This is it's a wonderful example for all of us, because many of you are going to begin or have begun into what we call the monad. And that is the oversoul, the beginning of the oversoul. Are you grasping this, the oversoul level? You can see the boundary, the seventh dimension on this chart in front of you. You can see what we spoke of yesterday as the monadic vehicles. And we tried to associate ourselves yesterday with a monadic vehicle, with a specific ray, with one of the 12, one of the council members of the 12. I want you to look at this chart for a moment. Try to remember which one you identified with best. And it doesn't matter whether it's correct or not, because you've all worked with all rays. I like to use the example of Simon Peter, because Simon Peter worked with the second ray. Maitreya never came in. Jesus never worked with the second ray. Everyone, all of those who teach metaphysics, or many, say he is the love. He is the most wonderful, loving being. But he's of the sixth ray. So Brian in this life is working first and third primarily, and yet the ray of which he is the monadic vehicle, with a great grouping, is the 10th ray. You see where the 10th is? And the 10th is the most significant in this point in what we call time. There is no time. So it happened yesterday with one personality that they touched into. I knew there was something slightly different when we looked at the geometrics, the forms on facing to my left side as I looked at this vast, vast dimension. I could see these forms, most of them geometric. Now, at our level of consciousness, how that is set up, I do not have the words to bring it through. But to know that we are making a link beyond our physical 12-strand DNA. All that we have ever thought of on earth were 7 chakras. Do you remember this? It's only recently that we've begun to look at 12. So, in a curious way, we then have to devise and work with 12, because nobody taught us that there was something beyond the universe. And forever, this one universe was all there was. Do you all remember this? And the growth apparent is so rapid now that every day makes shifts that are greater than the past. as we know the past. And it's very difficult to stay with and begin to integrate our experiences. They're so quickly achieved on a molecular or on an atomic body as everything becomes lighter and lighter, that sometimes we come undone a little. We hurt. And it's nice to be told that it's only the resistance that hurts. I don't believe that one. I'm not resistant, I don't think. But that's one of Metatron's pet themes. He tells me all the time that it's only my resistance. And in the same breath, nobody's ever done this at this level of consciousness. So these people who have never come into a physical form, they should try it. They really should try it. And when I used to listen to Janet McClure, who was adorable, and Vi Walmus would come in, he had 36 lives, a very, very long time ago, as we sequenced time. And he was a barber in one life, and he had a restaurant in another one. And it was all very nice. 36 lives. How about 12, 14,000 lives at this density? That's serious. You all have mastered. I want you to get that very, very clear, because you've always set yourselves as something less than anyone else. And I don't want that to happen, because it's not the truth. So in your little fight, raising family, going through your day-to-day life, slowly, certain areas seem to percolate. But always unworthiness was there. There was always Jesus or Buddha or somebody else to look to, or Sai Baba. Anyone that could do magic. And I really do caution you at this time on this little planet, because we have people writing books about Brian and others who are steadfastly saying that the cosmic avatar is Sai Baba. Sai Baba is a wonderful man, as was Jesus. But they are all physical for all of the reasons that we describe physicality. Is Jesus higher than the one that you call the Space Command? What do you call him? Ashtar? Well, Ashtar is not that highly evolved. Jesus isn't that highly evolved. You are certainly equal to that level. You can no longer live in the past, because it does not exist. And that everything we see and everything we touch and everything we do has a historical connotation. It may have worked for Winston Churchill, reviewing the wars to see how to approach the Second World War. It does not work anymore, dear ones. You have to live in the relative now of your own creative abilities. We have many wonderful metaphysical books telling us, oh, when the earth shakes and all the treasures are found, then we will know where we were. And there will be a spaceship from Lemuria near the Sphinx. And they'll find Peter buried outside of Rome, not where the church is. Who cares? Peter doesn't. Why in the world would he? All of what happens on this little planet, I like to reference one specific, and that is America's. With the American, we have some beloved Americans here. In this country, we would hope to see some shifts in consciousness because it is a beacon, as is Canada, but it's got 10 times less population, slightly more than that. So I'd hope all of us can live now. And when we have people take us through the grandiose steps of what was, it doesn't work. You cannot be going into a fourth dimensional reality, some of you fifth and a few of you into the sixth, and one yesterday into the seventh, with these beliefs. Now is all there ever was for us going to the fourth dimension. All of you are fourth dimensional beings. Time isn't what it was, is it? Some dear heart put a clock in front of me so I would know the time. She knows my weaknesses. So, worthiness was the issue with his grand lady yesterday. That's what surprised me, is the emotional body. It's not at that level of consciousness, even though you're coming in, you are traveling with your emotional confinement. And when the light started to penetrate it and overwhelmed, if that's Gabriel, we need help. Isn't any wonder we're such a mess? So I'm going to concentrate on these with you. It's fun to read history. It's fun, it's delightful to read and watch television where we take us through historical ruins. You must live now, absolutely. And it's very, very difficult because some of you are very mental. It's fine as long as you can separate them. What was and what is. And we will see more and more and more. This earth is not going to turn upside down. It's not going to split in two, as Vayawamasdwal and others thought on November the 4th, 1994. If it did, it's very subtle surgery. We dictate the terms of this planet. Please do not buy into the kind of negativity that suggests a terror, horror, that this world is not a fit place to abide in. That all these, quote, channels, unquote, are for seeing our future. They are seeing from the astrals, gentle ones. And the astrals are not what they were. The three lower astrals do not exist for all practical purposes. Beings are being shifted. Mostly going to the Pleiades, where we were yesterday briefly. That was very good for you to see that. Incidentally, our grouping, I saw last night that the two that weren't there, they were there earlier. This isn't something that I know very much about because I don't know one star from another consciously. But the three great pyramids are not of the greatest light. These were not the greatest pharaohs. We're not going to judge them, but they weren't. So if you look at Orion, you'll see a stagger. They look like they're the three great pyramids, the Giza, next one, it's offset. And if you look, I don't know your stars, but if you look at Orion, you will see that one star is staggered off to the side, slightly, a few degrees. And all of you were involved with those three, including the two. And I think the emphasis then for this wonderful area, this is a very clear area, having been to near New York and the corridors of power. Some of you shared this with me, and it was very difficult on Brian's physical body to be in that area because the darkness, the corridors of darkness between Washington, D.C. and New York are quite horrific. And we raised it, and it's the only place on earth that I have been to where the fight went on the inner planes for day after day after day, and long after I went to the Caribbean, you could still see this battle. It's just light and darkness. A furious inner battle of those who would continue to control, and those wishing to free the souls into light. And we've done that, gentle ones. Do not buy into the limitation that says, oh, I can't do that. The soul merge that we speak of, it's not possible to sit for a week in this energy and not have done at least the 5th initiation. It's not possible anymore. To go to class after class after class, and I do not like to talk about initiations because I find it profoundly limiting. But I understand how it came about. Did you hear the about? Is that Canadian? I can't tell anymore. I'll tell you a little bit about the Essenes, because many of you have wondered, and we were not Jewish, we were Essenes in that sense. So there's a lot of hogwash about the stories you're told. And when the one you know, Jesus, as Jesus, call him whatever you want, Jesus, we were both the same age when we entered into this particularly fine school. And we learned a great deal. We learned a great deal about the psychic world, about the astrals. We've moved beyond that now. We have moved beyond the astral. And in those days, 6 to 9 years of age, you stayed in this school separate of your parents, and it was such an honor. There are several that I do remember who have not become famous or infamous, who went to these schools, who were wonderful beings, and was very, very strict. Your Jesuit schools would be holiday time. And we all knew who we were. We all knew who we had been. It was very clear. We knew what our assignments would be. The difficulty for that very tiny aspect of this being, of playing out the role of Peter, was Peter knew it wouldn't work. This passion play was not going to work. And it didn't. When we stop to think even for a moment, there was no need for the crucifixion of Jesus. I ask you as a group, because this touches your hearts, it touches all of ours. If Jesus hadn't been assassinated, poor old Peter was, he was upside down and crucified. Paul had his head cut off. Why weren't they the saviors? Anyway, it's a very curious piece, and it was control from beginning to end, and the control now is fearful because it is losing the power that Constantine was able to maintain through the Roman Empire. But our teachings then showed the course, our destiny, much clearer than sitting in a class at a higher vibration today. Miracles were much easier. What you call miracles, there's nothing paranormal. So miracles really are an invalid term. Nothing is paranormal. And in the next few years, I caution you will see more and more as we deal with what some call, quote, grays, unquote. It's not a big problem. It's no problem for you who walk in light. So these fears that come up even when somebody touches in and unites with their oversoul, the going over and over and over, as is the case with this, my companion, to have this happen after all these years shows the clarity is still not with us regarding the emotional body. Some of you who spent a great deal of time with me taking man-made chakras, the first, second, and the third, the first, second, and the third, moving into the heart chakra, because that's where they belong. These are man-made. Survival is not the issue. You don't have dinosaurs. The emotional body, it's only part of it. The chakras are flexible and they move, they float, as those discs you saw yesterday. And what's most apparent is the shift over the next 35 years, which we will get into now, today and tomorrow, are very flexible. And we will take the first three, move the first three, the base, the emotional, and the one that man finds so difficult to deal with, particularly with the goddess energy here, and penetrating our total fabric, our total beingness, is the need to hold on to the lower mind, the third chakra, the lower will, the third chakra. It's deafening for male who has repeatedly been male for many, many lives to accept the fullness or the completeness of their own Godhead. It doesn't take from their sexuality. It addresses it in a different way. Nothing in all of creation is that polarized. And you'll see dreadful things done in the next short time. You're seeing them now. And I guess the best example would be the mutilation of people whose crime is to work at a, quote, abortion center, unquote. So they play the role of God. You'll see more and more and more of this. So they kill in the name of God. This is when the earth goes into its greatest tumultuous turmoil, and it will be so. No one is to blame. We were to have more than a two-strand DNA. And the three men that I touched yesterday spoke to, I could see that this is the problem. These are beautiful beings. But making the adjustment, this serious connection is much more than serious. We just use that as an example because it came through in our meditation of sitting as we do now. Breathe, please. Visualize for a moment because it was a very powerful moment for all of you. And know that you can spiritualize matter. We had an example of this for all of us yesterday. And even at that level of consciousness, this woman having been in this light for a very long time, worthiness was an issue. And I like the idea that there's no two chambers anymore. There isn't the king's chamber and the queen's chamber. It's wonderful. You all together now. What you do in that outer world is entirely up to you. You will be more and more cautious of what you do and how you behave. When you fully realize that that outer world is total illusion. And that's so hard to address. When you hurt, it hurts. When you see a child cry, particularly out of hunger, needless despair, all of the traps that were inherent in a two-strand DNA. It's called imprisonment, and for 300 million years we have been prisoners. You, as the goodly company, have come back and forth a number of times to try to extricate and to find freedom on a planet of such sorrows. You don't go to the lower chamber now when you visualize this. We'll use the Giza as an example. And let the light flood in as you face on the left-hand side. It's a very thin, exists in the Giza. There's this 4-inch light beam directed exactly to Sirius. This was not implemented then, that they could see more readily in the now. When you face the right, you see from Orion, which is a confusing nebula. Some parts are touching into the 6th dimension, 5th and 4th, as are many areas in this one universe. So never judge a constellation by the grays from reticulum, for they run the gambit also of 4th, 5th, and 6th dimensional beings. These are huge clusters. And we visualize ourselves as we are now in this chamber, and there's a very good reason for this. Brian doesn't understand, but this is what he's told. And find yourself in a golden chair in the king's chamber, and we sit as a group. The king's chamber is about just beyond halfway up as you view it. And your heart, it's very important that you make a large room to live in, a comfortable room to live in, a room that can accommodate all of creation. Always the thymus, gentle ones, always the thymus. And it's a striking golden light from both these levels. The feminine principle of existence, I want to have you begin to understand that it is very dynamic, and this will throw the male a little, for they will see that the receptive can be every bit as dynamic every bit as dynamic as what we perceive as male energy. So we have this incredible V of vivid light. And it penetrates into our gestalt, our group, our thymus room. And as it meets, it increases the lighties. These two have no resistance one to the other. In this issue, we're talking about Orion and Sirius, positive, negative, not as good and evil. And let it light this room, this cosmic heart in miniature. Call, please, upon all aspects of yourself now, and there are endless numbers, for ultimately we are one. All aspects of self, you must call on them, for you still have some free will. All aspects of self, gentle one, open it up. I'm going to address some that I can see that do not know, we do this often, but that do not know that this level of consciousness is also theirs. It seems so heavy, so dense. I ask those that are here, near, please come in, please. Those who feel that this is not their evolution, take instruction, if you will, please. Metatron. Kamial, address these ones, please, and assist them. At this level of consciousness, you can call on the 24. Please advise these ones, the 24 elders. Advise these ones that this level of consciousness is not a purgatory, that it has to be brought forward for them, for you, the ones we're addressing, to complete their journey. The light gets brighter and brighter as this unity becomes one focus, one androgynous focus. Energy is simply energy, dear ones. God, Source, does not recognize the dualities that we live within and confine ourselves to. It's marvelous. Very comfortable. You recognize gold. This is the golden chair, gentlemen, and it's a wonderful radiator, the best you have on earth other than your soul. It vibrates at a very, very fast rate. And you see Orion. These are miniature visions of the God, Source Goddess coming in now. But it's something that we can picture at our level of evolution on this little planet. Now this whole room, look to, yes. Put the pillars, please, in this room so there's very great light. Michael, Raphael, Oriel, Gabriel, please, and have light these pillars. Yes, they are lit, they are lit. They're very, very brilliant. And no matter where you go, they protect you. When you feel darkness, look to this cosmic room and bring in this marvelous, marvelous fusion. It is a fusion of love, of great joy, of great. It is the womb Look to the god and the goddess in miniature. Orion is neither light nor darkness. They work with a greater number of strands that we call DNA. But these have been your gods in your past, and they're not. Many of these have created the slavery on this planet. They would argue that there's no fault of their own, that we must release ourselves from limitation now, please. Breathe, gentle hearts, breathe in and fuse this light, this male and feminine principle of existence, and have it radiate, vibrate much faster than I'm saying, please. You pick up the vibration of these two uniting. It's absolutely critical in Mass at this time to spiritualize matter, which is what is happening. Much faster than most of you can sense or believe. It's literally now. It isn't what was does not exist. Gentle hearts, breathe in these two great lights and know that this is a source light. We're just stepping it down so that you can handle the energy. Blend, 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 please. Trigger that light. Trigger the light. Tell yourself to relax. Some of you are getting tense mentally. Look to the back, the medulla oblongata, the brain stem, please, and tell it to relax. Breathe gently, gentle ones. Relax. There is no resistance whatsoever as this duality becomes one, what we view as duality. This is your natural state, gentle ones. Is the dynamic energy greater than the receptive? Positively, no. Is the receptive greater than the dynamic? No. They fuse and become one. One, gentle hearts. Expand throughout this room. And while you're very, very comfortable sitting on this chair, please bring the earth into the thymus, into the heart. She's very, very tiny and very, very fragile. She's been relentlessly and mercilessly treated. And the fastest way to heal it is not in tears. It's simply to do it. Know that 200 in the fifth dimension is 1/60th. It takes 200 to the 160th power, gentle ones. That's equal to billions sitting and meditating. The power is immense now. And know this. Know this. Know that we are capable now, such as never on this little planet. At no time were we ever able to shift the consciousness immediately. Brian has seen this over and over and over again, and he knows that if you in California can stabilize that area, there are eruptions. Japan we know about. But it is so very crystallized. the whole society is extremely crystallized